All right, back on the Young Turks election coverage, Cenk, Uygur, Anna Kasparian, and Aida Rodriguez joins us. Aida, great to see you.
Great to see you too.
Yep, and we got a great guest. I know, right? So I'm gonna get to that in a second. We got a great guest for you guys in a sec too, but first, I got to give you the bad news. So first, some standard stuff. The Spencer Cox has won the governor's race in Utah. He's a Republican. That's of course. Trump has won Kansas. That's an of course. But an armed Trump fan arrested outside of a North Carolina polling station. That's unfortunately probably an of course. North Carolina is still a giant mystery with all sorts of different media organizations going in completely opposite directions on that. But now Ohio. So Trump has taken the lead with 69% reporting. Trump with a 2.5-point lead in Ohio. Earlier, the White House was very concerned about Biden's early lead in Ohio. Biden does not have that anymore. But on the other hand, as we know with covering elections here for nearly 2 decades on the Young Turks, we don't know if Cuyahoga County has come in. And there were earlier reports that the cities had not come in yet. And if that's the case, then Biden's still in good shape, but we just don't know. Well, we have the perfect guest to talk about this. Former Ohio State Senator Nina Turner joins us now. Senator Turner, great to have you. And what do you make of Ohio?
Good to be here, Cenk. Well, we definitely need my county, Cuyahoga County, to overperform. That is what has to happen. People may recall that in 2016, President Trump won 80 of the 88 counties. I mean, just wrap your mind around that. 80 of the 88 counties. It was great to see my state try to make amends for that. It is a state that President Barack Obama won twice, and so it is, it is possible for Vice President Biden to win this state. But Ohio is the quintessential swing state. It's a nail biter. But we need Cuyahoga County to overperform. Places like Youngstown, though, Cenk, President Trump made a lot of promises about bringing back jobs, and he didn't fulfill not one of those promises. Mm-hmm. Hello, somebody on that. And we're seeing people are waking up across the state to realize that President Donald J. Trump is no populist. But he's a populist for the wealthy.
That's the thing, though. Are they? So what is wrong with the Democratic Party that when we have an opponent like Donald Trump, who's not only openly racist, et cetera, now he's picking up minority voters. Jesus, how in the world is that happening? But he's deeply incompetent. We lead the world in cases and deaths in coronavirus. But on top of that, he didn't do any of the things that he promised in terms of bringing jobs. In fact, Ohio and a lot of the Midwest bled jobs. So how is this election close, Nina?
Insulted Goodyear. You may recall that. I mean, he went off on Goodyear. Goodyear is headquartered in Akron, Ohio. Cenk, you got to have a vision that provides provision. And part of this is not just what's going to happen tonight, but what's going to happen into the future. You mentioned people of color deciding not necessarily to go with the Democrats. You have to, in order to participate fully in an electoral process, you got to believe that you got a stake in that process. And heretofore, unfortunately, the Democratic Party has failed. That failing is not just about what happens tonight. That failing is about what happened 10 years ago, 20 years ago. We talk about that all the time. And so this right here, what can happen tonight should be an indictment on Donald J. Trump. But what we're seeing that in many of these states, or some of the states, it's just too close. And that should not be the case, given the epic failure that President Donald J. Trump has been for the poor, the working poor, and the barely middle class in this country. If I were the Democrats, even if the Democrats win tonight, they need a total makeover, Cenk. Yes. That's just period, point blank.
Yes, thank you. Yes. I've been kind of holding back my negativity tonight because I don't want our audience to feel bad. Absolutely. But I mean, this election shouldn't be close. I mean, Donald Trump has mishandled coronavirus. We have 225, I mean, at this point, who knows how many? I have to look at the current numbers, but the last time I checked, over 225,000 Americans dead during this pandemic. People are losing their small businesses, they're getting evicted out of their homes. This should have been a cakewalk for Joe Biden. And I kept hearing over and over again, oh, he's leading in the polls, 10%, double digits, national polls, this and that. Garbage. I mean, like, we're looking at this right now, and to be quite honest with you, if he wins, it's gonna be a very close election, and it shouldn't be. And I think you're absolutely right. You need to give people a platform and a message that resonates with the bread and butter issues that matter to them. The largest voting bloc in America is non-voters. That is a problem.
That's right. That's exactly right. What was it, 100 million, I believe, eligible voters in 2016 just decided, well, not even worth my time. Now we're seeing epic turnouts this time, but how do we sustain that for the long term? It just can't be every now and then people turn out to vote. We need folks to participate. It's a participatory exercise, this democracy, and we need people to be on and popping at all times.
Yeah, I just want to give some updates to the audience and to Nina and everybody else as well. As we talk here, a couple of elections have been called. John Cornyn's won re-election in Texas. It's not overly surprising, but Democrats were hopeful that he was going to get a run. Apparently he didn't. Tommy Tuberville has won in Alabama, so that means the Democrats lose a seat in the Senate. Doug Jones is gone. One piece of good news that was definitely expected, but AOC has won, and that election has been called in New York 14 district. But now the Ohio lead is up to 4 for Trump, with 72% reporting. So where the rest of the 28% is coming from will probably determine the election. So now, mind you, Biden can still lose Ohio and win if he just holds on to Pennsylvania. That's why I thought it was near impossible for Biden to lose, because Trump has to sweep every state almost that's a swing state. But here he is with a possibility of doing that. Look, I know I'm gonna beat a dead horse here, but Nina, we were told, and I have to confess that near the end I even believed it, that all you had to be was neutral against Donald Trump, and that and now I look at how close the election is. No matter which way it goes, it sounds like we didn't. They made the same mistake again. They didn't make their case nearly well enough.
I wanted to say something because I think that this is this thing in America that fans show up more than constituents. And that is a problem that we're having in this country, the fanaticism with Donald Trump. That with apathy, ignorance is killing us. I mean, I tweeted, have you seen any Democrats harassing Trump voters at the polls? No, but when you see these Trump supporters at the polls, they're yelling out this election's Benghazi, which is, pedophilia and the crime bill. Like, they get their talking points and their marching orders and they go. And what do? We stay idle. We do nothing. We don't show hands. And I mean proverbial hands, physical hands. We don't do any of it. And white racist people in this country will bite their noses to spite their face. They will show up and vote to uphold white supremacy, even if it costs their health care, even if it costs them their jobs, even if it costs them their health.
Their lives.
That is more important to them. Absolutely, it's more important to them.
Yeah.
The problems of this country are deep, though. We're gonna have to come face to face with them. This is not just about President Donald J. Trump. It really is about the nation as a whole. That when you have this type of bigotry dead up in your face, that was always there all along, but now it's all up in our face. And still, this country does not move. We got to call the question. We need some real truth and reconciliation in this nation. We need a provision. We need a vision that provides provision for the people so that people are actively engaged, that they know that the people that they're electing to office are gonna fight like hell to change their material conditions. There's too much suffering going on. There was suffering before Trump got into office. God knows it's suffering right now, especially with the coronavirus, the plague that is the coronavirus. But where is that national? I mean, where's the other stimulus? Still don't have that. You got the beg, Democrats and Republicans. It's a failure. And that to me, that is what we have to look at beyond this election cycle. What type of country do we really damn want to be at the end of the day? Lord have mercy. I hope y'all don't get cut off at the word. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that word. That might not be a word I can say on here.
Okay.
My apologies.
So Nina, I want to ask you one more thing here. That's okay. That's really important here because look, there's two scenarios. One, Biden at this point, it's would be very surprising if we could pretty much just drop the landslide conversation. So if Biden ekes it out here, that's one scenario that I want to get to second. If Trump ekes it out, that's it. I mean, we're done with corporate Democrats. There's no ands, ifs, or buts. There's no negotiation. There's no compromise. We got to burn this thing down. The Democratic Party cannot lose 2 elections in a row to Donald Trump and come and tell progressives how to run elections. I mean, can I just get that out of the way as a amen?
No, Cenk, but come on. I mean, they needed to go with Biden to appeal to Cubans in South Florida because Cubans in South Florida would never vote for Bernie Sanders, right? But they would vote for Biden.
So, yeah, Senator Turner.
Even if they squeak it out, that's not good enough in this moment. This kind of crisis demands overwhelmingly that the Democratic Party was able to prove to the American people that they are on their side. So whether it's a squeak or we lose, we can't keep going down the same path. Absolutely not. It is not acceptable.
So Nina, look, I keep coming back to the same thing because it is indisputably true. Isn't our top opponents the mainstream media? Because they keep telling everybody, no, corporate Democrats are geniuses. They got this thing figured out. Hillary Clinton's gonna win by 1,000 points. And Joe Biden is definitely gonna be better than progressives. And one of the things that I think they're missing is, if they're coming at it from an honest perspective, is you need passion on your side. You need passion. That's what Ida said, that's what Nina's saying, that's what Anna's saying. That's what all of us progressives are saying. And the mainstream media says, no, just take your ass kicking and then say, well, he's a bad guy. And that's obviously not working. So let's say that, I mean, look, so you tell me, what do we do with the mainstream media? If we're impolite to them, they shun us. If we're polite to them, they keep lying to the American people, saying that politeness from Democrats that don't make their own case is a brilliant strategy. So what do we do with them?
Well, people I mean, we still have to continue to be there. I think progressives need to be in every single space, period, and continue to push and change the dynamic. What we do know about media in America is that it never tells the story of the working class. It doesn't tell the story of the marginalized and the underdog by and large. And that's why people like us are necessary. TYT is necessary. Independent media is necessary. And it is necessary for people like me and even though there are few of us progressives, to be on mainstream media. What is even more necessary than that is for us to continue to have conversations neighbor to neighbor. That this is not necessarily about what the media says, it is about what we say and how we come together as people, despite the different power structures in this country that disengage or ignore what the poor, the working poor, and the barely middle class in this country need and deserve. We cannot go through this again. So a squeaker is a failure too, period. It really is. It's an indictment on this country and the way that things are running, and we got to do something different. So it is going to take we the people.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. So last question in the time that we have left. So assuming that it's a squeaker and Biden wins, what should be the progressive stance towards Biden, given that they did not deliver what should have been a super easy landslide against Donald Trump? Do we continue to push for unity, or do we immediately start?
No. I mean, November, no honeymoon. Operation No Honeymoon. You heard it from me.
Yes.
There, on and popping. The very next day, Operation No Honeymoon. You know, you got New Jersey. They vote to legalize marijuana, right? You got Delaware elects Sarah McBride, the nation's first trans state senator. You got Oregon. On Oregon is doing some progressive things too. what the progressive movement, the progressive agenda, the American people are on our side. And for those who need polls or stats to tell them that, the stats show it very clearly. What we need now is leaders who don't run away from a progressive agenda, which I call a humanitarian agenda. Medicare for all, Green New Deal, reforming in some places, throwing out and replacing a criminal justice system that is patently unfair, that is racist to the core. I mean, stand on it. That's what we need. And that's what the American people expect, and that is what they deserve. So no, Operation No Honeymoon, the very next day.
Well, it has just officially been launched right here on the Young Turks, hashtag Operation No Honeymoon. And they certainly do not deserve one, given the results so far tonight. And that's if they win. All right, Senator Nina Turner, as always, a voice of strength and reason. We appreciate you being on the Young Turks.
Appreciate much love.
Yep. All right, guys, before we go to the break, I have to tell you fairly terrible news. And then we will talk about where things stand when we come back. Remember that 65-point lead in Pennsylvania? Well, now 20% reporting Trump leads by 3 points in Pennsylvania. And remember that lead in Ohio, not only is it gone, but Trump now leads by 5 points in Ohio with 74% reporting. I mean, I don't know if polling is, I mean, if these numbers hold, then then I'm with everybody else. You should never listen to another poll again, and they're totally junk science and don't mean a thing. I don't think that's the case. I still think Biden's gonna pull it out. But at this point, look at how late in the night it is, and we're now talking about Biden being able to pull it out. It's not a comeback because it's just a matter of how they're counting the votes. But it feels like a comeback, that he needs one. And certainly based on the numbers we have now, yeah, that's what he needs. And so, boy, this is not where, certainly not where I expected to be at this point in the night. And so I still think he's the favorite, but now it's by a tiny amount. So come back, we'll give you all the details and all the updates. We'll be right here. All right, back on the Young Turks, Cenk, Anna, and Aida Rodriguez with you guys. There's so many important topics we got to discuss. As usual, I got to give you the updates first. At this point, almost none of them are good. Ohio's in the same place we left it before the break, 5 points up for Trump with 3/4 of the vote. In North Carolina, Biden still holds a 0.6 lead with 84% reporting. But again, New York Times says no, Trump's gonna win that 95% chance. They still have Georgia at 83% chance for Trump. So given how the rest of this night has gone, Georgia, I can't imagine why Georgia would be less certain for Trump than North Carolina. I guess anything is possible, but you pretty much consider Georgia gone. I'm gonna do the math for you guys on the Electoral College, but remember, Trump has to win all these states that he is winning, then he has to win Pennsylvania. So it looks like, for the moment being, the 3 biggest states left that are relevant, if we think Trump has won Florida, North Carolina, and Georgia, are Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Arizona. So those are the 3 biggies on the board. There's still one district in Maine and one district in Nebraska that's relevant. We're gonna have Kara Eastman on from that district a little bit later, and it's amazing that we're at this point. And so it looks like the establishment Democrats, even in having an election this close, have blown it again. So we got to get right back on that warpath. And look, I'll break it down for you guys later as to why it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't about the warpath. That political dynamic is so important, and unfortunately, it's been a thing we cannot solve. If you go on a warpath, the rest of the media says, that's it, you're all blacked out. I'm never gonna put any of you on because you're not civil. If you don't go on the warpath, these losers keep bungling it to fascists like Donald Trump.
Yep.
So you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Who's at fault? The mainstream media is at fault.
And also the Democratic Party, Cenk. The Democratic Party cheerleads the corporate Democrats. They pretend like they'd be the most effective. Look, what Biden has done in this election is very similar to what we've seen in other failed congressional races for Democrats. He decided to run as Republican light, right? And the reason why he did that is because you gotta look at who is assisting him materially with his campaign. And so you have this infusion of never Trump Republicans, tiny minuscule percentage of the country, right? Negligible amount of voters. And they're pumping money into his campaign. You got the ads from the Lincoln Project. So who is Biden gonna listen to? Is he gonna listen to the donors, the people who are helping him materially? Or is he gonna listen to what progressives have been screaming from the rooftops? Focus on the bread and butter issues. He didn't do that. He didn't. He did a little bit on the margins, but his whole message was, I'm the unity guy. I want Republicans in my cabinet. Okay, but why would Republican voters unite and stand behind you when they can have Trump, who speaks to them on a number of issues, including some of the identity stuff that they're obsessed with? It's just, it was a dumb strategy, and I just knew, I felt it in my gut that this was not gonna be a blowout for Biden. If anything, if he wins, it's gonna be a super close race, but I don't know. I mean, I'm a little too much of a pessimist, so I'm gonna stop right there. I don't wanna get people down based on my own pessimism, but I don't think that Biden ran a great campaign.
Yeah, well, that's now super obvious. But look, guys, it's the media. It's definitely the media. Because is it the Democratic Party's fault? Of course. But when you say something as obvious as the problem is Democratic weakness, every one of you watching out there, it doesn't matter if you're a Republican, Democrat, or somewhere in the middle, you all know that that's obviously true. The Republicans come in 100 miles per hour and they shift the conversation to nonsense, irrelevant factors, but they move the debate and they fight for their side, and Trump's got everybody excited, etc. Our side never gets their own guys excited. They never fight for us. They never fight for us. They're pathetically weak. But if you say that, the media bans you. The rest of the media bans you. They will not allow that kind of talk anywhere on cable news. The New York Times hates it. The only people who hate it more is NPR. So a lot of you probably grew up listening to NPR. Honestly, they're poison. And let me explain why they're poison. Not because they have fake news, that's nonsense, right? We're not right wingers. Do they have real news? Yes. Do they have facts? Yes. Do they shade it in favor of corporate Democrats? Absolutely. But more important than that, they taught generations of Democrats to whisper. And if you don't whisper, you're being uncivil. And guys, you progressives, you wouldn't want to be uncivil because then you might win an election or two. We should be crushing Trump right now. The fact that it's close is unconscionable. Aida, I'm gonna go to you on 3 separate super important things. But first, I gotta tell the audience, look guys, this is all we have, okay? You think ABC right now or CNN is talking about unconscionable Democratic weakness? That they never punched Trump in the face? Oh, I'm gonna bring John Kasich in and I'm gonna bring Republicans in and we're gonna play patty cakes. Here, it's so easy, it's so easy. Here's what you could have done. Hey, we're the worst in cases, worst in deaths. First to worst, first to worst. Donald Trump brought us from first to worst, first to worst, first to worst, first to worst. And then that would force Donald Trump to say, no, per capita, we're actually 9th worst out of over 200 countries. That's how you win a debate, by going for the jugular. Not going, oh golly, gee, this guy, he's running over me. No, you run over him. But if you do that, you will be banned definitely from NPR, definitely from the New York Times, and almost certainly from CNN, and definitely from MSNBC. So, look, I'm saying this as you know, I'm getting worked up, right? So, but look, guys, we do have each other, and online we're larger than all those guys. Okay, And soon, I hope, with your help, we'll be larger than all of them, no matter what, online or TV. So right now, we're handing them their ass on Facebook and other social media. They're going with their soft ass BS, like, oh, we're gonna come in here and be super soft and read like robots. We're coming in on fire because for God's sake, we wanna win. And we wanna bring help to the American people. So if you can't step up and help, on YouTube, you just hit the join button below. Everything matters, everything makes a difference. If you're watching anywhere else, tyt.com/join. And yes, help us in the fundraising, tyt.com/go, because every dollar we have is strength and power to progressives. And as you can tell from the Young Turks, from 18 years and from right now, we're not going to be afraid to use that power. We get enough power in the media, and I'm gonna steamroll these sons of bitches. I'm gonna steamroll them. I'm not talking about Republicans. First, the corporate Democrats are up because they suck at this. And they're the ones that prevent us from beating Republicans. Then we're gonna slaughter the Republicans politically. But they gotta get out of the way. Both Jake Tapper and Nancy Pelosi and all those, and every editor at the New York Times has to get out of our way. Let us hit the Republicans in the face instead of playing patty cakes with them. How many elections are we gonna get to a razor's edge with a monster idiot fascist like Donald Trump? One last thing, I swear to God I'm gonna go to Aida, but one last thing on this, guys. Forget him being a racist, forget him being a fascist. The guy's IQ is lower than 70. He's an idiot. He's a total moron. And you couldn't figure out how to crush him in an election? Man, the corporate Democrats and the mainstream media suck at this. They absolutely, positively suck, and they brainwash smart people into compliance. Well, that's not what we do at the Young Turks. If you're into compliance, don't watch us. If you're into, let's go fight these guys and win, then you're with us. Let's go fight them all and win. Aida, what in the world happened in Florida? What in the world happened with Latino voters? And they told us, hey, don't pick Bernie Sanders, otherwise they'll call him a socialist. They called Biden a socialist anyway, and it looks like it totally worked, didn't it?
Yeah, they call me a socialist. So listen, that was all day long today. You know, first of all, I agree with you. I think we need all hands on deck, and we need the proverbial hands and the physical hands. So I feel the passion that you feel, and I am so angry. And I'm not embarrassed to be angry, and they can do as many videos as they want about me being angry and call it a meltdown all they want, because I actually give a damn about people in this country that show up every day, go to work, who don't have millions of followers on Instagram and Twitter and don't have time for that because they gotta survive. But I agree with you, the civility that they have pushed on us that they don't even abide by, the savages, the barbaric practices towards people in this country, and I'm not just talking about people of color and Black people, because that's a whole other level, but just poor people, working class people, struggling people, the lack of empathy that has been employed on the people of this country, and we just sit there and take it because we want to make sure that we appear a certain way, and it doesn't matter because when you do that, they call you smug anyway. Now, what's happening with Latin people, Latinos, Latinx, we showed up, but this whole socialism talking point that is really, really used to push the emotional buttons of people from like Cuba and Venezuela, because we are talking about universal health care, we're talking about education, which I don't even get, I don't understand. Anna and I have had this conversation over and over again, how you could feel appalled and nervous about somebody trying to give you what you're struggling to have that keeps you in debt and on the bottom. It is the greatest mind trick of all time that they have put on our people. So yes, we showed up in numbers now, 3 times more than the last election, but many people showed up to support Trump because let's just say, keep it real. A lot of people of color hate themselves. They want to identify with upward mobility, and to them, that means white is right. And if you're going to give me the talking points about the economy and bringing back the jobs and all whatever it is, we know simply that is not accurate. So a lot of Latinx people showed up, and I will say Latinos because the Latinx people are the progressive thinkers that are voting the right way. But the Latinos, They showed up because they wanted to uphold white supremacy. They wanted to uphold the status quo because it makes them feel comfortable, because they've been told that if we have universal health care and education in this country accessible to everybody without them having to go into debt, that we are going to turn into Cuba and Venezuela. And it's still amazing how America demonizes all these countries and their political processes when they are responsible so much for destabilizing these countries and causing this chaos in their countries. And then we'll say, oh, we don't want to be them. But we never, ever admit the part that we play in what happens in those countries.
Yeah, so I want to talk about Kamala Harris. I want to talk about other parts of this strategy that they have completely and utterly bungled when we come back. But I got a very important update for you guys that I got to tell you about. So now these numbers, nothing is held tonight. So take it with a giant grain of salt, take it with a boulder of salt. But Arizona is now reporting 75% in, and Biden has a 9-point lead. I mean, we've been here before. We saw this movie before. We saw it in Ohio. We saw it in Pennsylvania. We've seen it in Florida. But 75% reporting in a normal election would be gigantic. And a 9-point lead is gigantic. Is it gonna hold? No one has any idea. And so let me give you one other thing before we go that is important in that context. The reason why I was so confident in the beginning of the night and for the last 2 weeks, as I've now said several times tonight, Trump has to sweep the swing states basically, right? So if Biden can just do the bare minimum of holding Minnesota, which shouldn't even be in play in any way, shape, or form, Michigan and Wisconsin, where he's supposed to have gigantic double-digit leads, just hold those guys. You could actually lose Ohio and Pennsylvania if you win Arizona and you win the Nebraska 2nd District and the Maine 2nd District, which are, again, they're supposed to win those. Biden still wins. He still wins losing Ohio and Pennsylvania in that scenario. It's almost an unlosable election, but the Democrats are this close to losing it. The join button's below. Everybody go to tyt.com/go, because the mainstream media isn't gonna help us. We need to help ourselves. You give us power, we punch them in the face. Young Turks. All right, back on the Young Turks. Cenk, Anna, and Aida with you guys, and you as well. Everyone watching is part of this show. We don't do it like CNN and the others. We actually care about you guys. We involve you in the show. I'm gonna read one of the member comments in a second. But first, wall-to-wall bad news. Ohio, now Trump has a 6.8% lead with 82% reporting. If Cuyahoga County is gonna come in, let's do it. Okay, and it's still certainly possible that the cities come in. If it was a normal election and not having this mail in and not knowing where the votes are coming from, I'd definitely call it. I mean, you can't make up that kind of lead in a normal election with 82% reporting. I'd call Ohio, and not the whole election. Again, the one ray of hope is Arizona, where Biden still holds a significant lead, but that lead of 9 points with 3/4 of the vote in, 75% of the vote in. But is the remaining 25% in-person voting? Did the Republicans win that big? So far tonight, no lead is held for Biden. It just dissipates. And so we'll see what happens. One tiny sliver of good news, Roy Cooper has been reelected as governor of North Carolina. He's a Democrat. And I'm just gonna read one comment and then go to Aida and Anna again. Friendlier Ghost, because sometimes we call Anna Casper the friendly ghost or host, writes in, I have a question. If Trump wins a second term, all right, I immediately wanna stop, but I'm gonna keep going. Do we put some blame on Obama for the calls he made to Pete and Kamala to unite behind Biden to get enough delegates, and in essence defeating Bernie in the convention? Well, it turns out to be a super easy question. Of course, Obama would be massively responsible for this tragic mistake, and no one in the media will ever let you say that. If you say that in media, you'll be banned. The rest of the media will ban you if you say one unkind word about Barack Obama. And in fact, they'll accuse you of being a racist. That he's their corporate shield. And so, here's another thing I blame Obama for. He's the best speaker we have on the Democratic side by a lot. And that includes Bernie Sanders, et cetera. It might not include Nina Turner, it might not include Killer Mike, it might not include AOC or Jamal Bowman, but it might. He might be the #1 speaker we have. What do you do, 3 rallies, 4? Remember they yelled at Bernie Sanders because he only did 39 rallies for Hillary Clinton. Now I understand coronavirus and all that, but you don't have to sit in your basement or your yacht all election and wait till a week before the election to do anything. So would Obama be partly responsible? He'd be a giant part of the responsibility of losing. Now that the landslide's off the table, the Democrats definitely screwed up. Definitely. Having an election this close is insane. Insane. All right, again, all right, you get it. We're all in this together. See that ticker down there? That's where we celebrate you guys, the Twitch members, the YouTube members. We try to put your names in as much as possible when you sign up. You hit the join button on YouTube, right underneath the video. You go to tyt.com/join, you go to tyt.com/go, because it's us versus all of the rest of the media. They're never gonna allow anyone on TV to say Barack Obama's responsible. He's a saint, he's a saint. You're not allowed to say it, okay? Joe Biden's a saint, you're not allowed to criticize him. They thought Hillary Clinton was a saint, and you're not allowed to criticize them. Wrong, we will criticize them, and sometimes at the top of our lungs, because our job is not to represent them or their goddamn corporate donors. Our job is to represent you. All right, Aida, speaking of hiding in a basement.
And their job is to represent us. They work for us. They work for us. And we cannot blindly support anyone because you don't. That is the greatest insult. If you cannot hold a politician accountable, then you do not truly believe in this person. That is fanaticism. That is not being an active member of the citizenship that is the United States. That's the difference between this country and the other countries. You're supposed to be able to say, no, man, you lied about this. You said you were going to do that. You didn't do this. That is the part. That's what a democracy is. And somewhere along the line, we've become these clusters of these people who idolize these human beings as if they were the Kardashians or Beyonce. And these are the people who are managing the funds of our community, the ones who are misappropriating the money that is supposed to be making our lives better. And it's just so gross and it is so disgusting. And where is Kamala? Where is Kamala? Why is nobody talking about Kamala? We talked about it earlier. You know why? Because America, the world, is far more sexist than it is racist. And that means intersectionality. Black women are hated, are super hated. Nobody is talking about Kamala. Kamala is supposed to be helping Joe Biden. She's supposed to be the plus. Right? Because Black women are the most educated, the rising educated group in this country. She is supposed to be the dream in this. And what is happening to the dream? It is being erased. You don't hear anybody talking about Kamala. Tell me, we are probably the first people talking about Kamala in the 7 o'clock hour this evening.
Yeah, well, that's probably true, except for if you include the Trump administration. So I've seen this movie 1,000 times. The Republicans attack and the Democrats cower. So what did Trump do? He said, "Oh, Kamala Harris is a communist. And a monster." Those are direct quotes. And what did Biden do in response? He hid Kamala in a basement. Oh, for God's sake, man. Are you ever going to stand up for yourself? Right now, the lead is up to 8 in Ohio. I'm sorry, 7 in Ohio. And according to exit polling, Trump won union voters in Ohio 56 to 42. 56 to 42, he won union voters in Ohio. If you're the Democratic Party and you can't win union voters in Ohio, you suck at your job. I mean, not by a little, but by a lot. You get an F- for how you do politics. But no, don't say, hey, on TV, no. Democrats are geniuses. My ass, they are. Anna.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, when you really look at, in retrospect, the way Biden campaigned, I mean, avoiding appealing to Latino voters, they didn't think it was. Who are these Democratic strategists and why do they have jobs? Like, Democratic strategists give the worst advice. So, no, we're gonna completely ignore the Latino vote. We don't think it's gonna be an important part of our campaign strategy. Okay, fine. I mean, it's not working out so well for you tonight. But look, aside from, Ida and I were talking about this during the break, so I wanna make this point now before my part of the show is over. Look, there's one issue that unites everyone in this country, or the vast majority of people in this country, and it is the bread and butter issues. Higher wages, job security, just bread and butter. People wanna be able to pay their bills comfortably, they wanna have good jobs, they wanna be able to provide for their families. Going after Trump on moral things, right? And that's all corporate Democrats do these days. Is it going to fire people up and get them to the polls, right? Now, yes, more people voted this time compared to 2016, but it's still, Biden wasn't an exciting candidate. I mean, I think we can all agree on that. But everyone was sold on this idea that Biden was the most electable. Most electable based on what? Like, where was the data, where was the polling, where was the indication that Biden was more electable than a giant list of other Democrats who ran against him during the primary? I just feel like the corporate media, along with corporate Democrats, just kept repeating that message until people believed it. And I do understand that there was a degree of nostalgia associated with Biden because of the Obama era, but I don't know, it's not looking good. And just like take a second to think about how disastrous Trump has been for people's financial situation, for their health during this pandemic. People are getting evicted from their homes. I mean, it's unbelievable. This should have been a blowout, and it isn't.
So, Ida, I want to keep raging about how stupid and irrational the corporate media is, where they say, no, you should not have a fighter on your side. Only the Republicans should have fighters. But Democratic fighters are bad guys and they're uncivil and they should all shut up and bow their heads to Republicans. Corporate media screwed us. They screwed us so hard. All right, but back to something you mentioned earlier that's so important. You said something along the lines of sexism is worse than racism in terms of its effect in these elections. And as I see, look, I don't know if that union vote is indicative in Ohio or not, but I saw it in almost every demographic, white, Latino, black, etc. Trump appealed to the macho in them, and since the Democrats are so weak, it's us appealing to the macho in men seems inconceivable. And there's a way to do that, not in a bad way, but in a way where we say, hey, you know what? You gotta have pride. You gotta have pride in your job. And we're gonna bring you pride by getting you higher wages so you can provide for your family, etc. So you tell me, how big a deal was that issue here in terms of whether it's sexism, the macho appeal, etc. in this election? Do you think, Ida?
Huge. When you talk about our Latino, Latinx community, we already know that there is a big machismo problem within our communities. But you hear, like, I actually have dedicated time that I'll never get back in life to reading tweets and going and investigating what my people are saying. And you see it, oh, he's unafraid, he's unapologetic. Nobody's gonna come in this country and turn it into Cuba. He's gonna fight, he's not embarrassed to say what's on his mind. That whole thinking, that's toxic masculinity. They've tried to discredit her. Listen to what they said about Kamala, that she's not even a real black person, right? They will do anything. They did it with Barack Obama. First they fall apart when they see your blackness,
And then they try to dismantle it so that they can alienate you from your own people. And when we talk about Latinos, Latinx, Afro-Latinos, Black Latinos, Indigenous Latinos, and we don't address race, and we don't address the sexism that rests within our communities that we're not honest about. I mean, this is what people, you talk about these ignorant, white people that are poor and struggling. Oh, I'm like Donald Trump. You see them jumping out of their cars saying, I'll punch you in your face. I got my gun. Everything is about this toxic behavior, and it comes from Donald Trump looking you in your face and saying the most outrageous, egregious things that a human being can say about another human being. And because they think it, they identify with it, they celebrate it. And a lot of that stuff, I mean, he said, grab him by the you know what, and he's the president of the United States. Can you imagine if Ronald Reagan would have said that? Can you imagine the moral high horse? That moral high horse is gone. Look at the people who are supporting Donald Trump. Look at the people that stormed Michigan's legal buildings. That moral high horse is gone. They will double down in the name of power. It is the ugly monster has been here, and now we're seeing the monster's face. And it is racist. It is homophobic. It is transphobic, Islamophobic, and above all things, it is sexist.
Yeah, and guys, this is, look, we gotta go. I gotta tell you a couple more races, but what Aida is saying is so important. And if you want constructive critique of the Democratic Party and how they ran this election, and within the context of this issue of sexism, because I understand that it's tough to challenge, right? So you say, well, all right, you're losing guys who care about machismo, but you also want to point out that it's toxic masculinity. So how do you square that, right? I think that in the long run, it's a relatively easy thing to do. How do you do it? When Kamala Harris is in a debate with Mike Pence, you let her debate him. It was, when we covered it live for you guys, for those of you who watched, you'll remember. I said, why does she have that fake smile? Oh, the corporate media is aghast. You're not allowed to talk about her smile, etc. No, you're missing my point. We know Kamala Harris can be tough. So why don't you let her hit him? Pence kept hitting and hitting and hitting. She might have won that debate on that night, according to the polling. But they keep winning the battles and losing the war. Why do they keep losing the war? Because they never make their own case. If the country had seen a strong black woman basically rip Pence to shreds, that's what in the long run gets people to go, oh, maybe woman doesn't equal weak. I don't know. For God's sake, at least try. If you have a strong woman on your side, let her be strong. It was super obvious. We told you, now this is not Monday Morning Quarterback. We told you when we were covering the debate. It was super obvious that the consultants told her, don't seem angry. If I was running the Democratic Party, if a consultant ever said, don't seem angry, I'd fire them on the spot. That's why you've lost all these elections, because you seem so weak. You can't even stand up for yourself. How are you gonna stand up for others? And that's the message you constantly put out there. So, yep, they tied everybody's hands, and look at that. Now we're in a dead heat in the late in the night on election night. So here are the obvious calls, though. Joe Biden has won California, Oregon, and Washington, obviously. Trump has obviously won Idaho. Jim Risch has won re-election. He's a Republican from there. Inslee has won re-election as governor in Washington. And Jeff Merkley has won re-election as a Democratic senator in Oregon. He's a good senator. He's actually a rare progressive. But you know what? Anyway, even the Merkleys of the world. He's a good progressive, he's good on policies. You remember when Merkley stood up for you? I'll wait. No, the correct answer is no, you don't remember that. Because no strong Democrat is allowed on TV, is allowed within the Democratic Party. They're all taught civility, compliance, and utter contemptible weakness. That's my take on it. All right, hit the join button below, tyt.com/join. Let's build a giant army, run over the rest of the media so that we could run over the corporate Democrats, so we could run over Republicans. That is the logical thing to do. You're never gonna win if you go along with the weak cowards, Young Turks. Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk, and I'll see you soon.